You know, Bill, we're becoming quite the media company. I'm getting a lot of comments on your hard work behind the scenes and the amount of information that we're bringing that people really need to know. So, kudos on that. Tell us a little bit about what's happening with your team and who you have all over the state and how this is getting done.
Well, part of the advantage we have is we do have people all over the state. They're all experts in their own area, and those areas are diverse. So we have, we got legal folks, we've got election integrity folks, we have just good
Yeah.
researchers. We have a couple of whistleblowers, actually more than a couple nowadays, um, and they are bringing us things almost constantly, almost too much to really cover, as you can probably tell, and our readers can tell from Georgia Record. We're just every day is something new, and
Yeah.
between that and our ability to process it through, we seem to be bringing what people want and need.
Well, that's exactly the mission at CDM. And I don't know if you saw, but the Daily Wire is laying off staff, having major issues internally, resignations, drama. And I think it all stems to people just want truth. And, I don't have anything to say about the Daily Wire, but I'm just noticing that a lot of the legacy media, anything conservative Inc. is kind of coalescing around people that bring the truth, which we do. We're brought to you by the Georgia Record. Welcome to the Georgia Show, georgiarecord.com. Again, always go there if you're in Georgia, and cdm.press. Put us in your daily scan. We're going to give you information you're not going to see anywhere else. I guarantee you that. There was a good example yesterday was the alleged assassination attempt on Vladimir Putin with a limousine blew up in Moscow. We had the ability to talk to some people on the ground, and they said, yeah, a car did blow up, but there's no confirmation it had anything to do with Putin. And we checked with the other sources, and they said it's a BS story. So you didn't hear that anywhere but us. So if you want the good information, put cdm.press and georgiarecord.com in your daily scan. Bill, we are slammed as always. I know it's a full lineup. Why don't you run through it for us, please?
Okay, so we are going to welcome our first guest, Chris Mora, in. He has been leading the GOP in Lumpkin County, and we want to hear the latest. I believe there may be an announcement involved, and so we'll be the first to hear that. We're also going to talk about a strange mailing that is going out around the state, offering membership in the Georgia GOP, and we'll explain why that is surprising.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about some drama revolving around the GOP elections and convention coming up in a couple of months. And we'll also talk about some very startling, very concerning news regarding, again, the stinking pesticide bill that we have been sounding the horn on now for over a month. And there's new news that makes it even more daunting. So and maybe a couple other surprises, we'll see.
So, we get a lot of comments from the people who don't like what we're reporting, that we're causing division and we just need unity. Well, our view of the world is we need transparency, and you're not going to get a powerful, populist, effective leading party if you're not transparent on what's happening behind the scenes, and you don't play fair and you don't have fair dealing with everybody in the state. So that is our focus, and we're gonna continue to bring that line of thinking and worldview to the public in Georgia and all around the country. Bill, we've got a new sponsor, and do you have your lip pillow in? I know you ordered some.
I do not as yet, but according to even my wife suggested that I try the Alp from Tucker Carlson. So it is on the way, from what I understand.
Here's our new sponsor, alppouch.com/CDM. A new experience if you're a nicotine pouch user. Here we go.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. He wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know. I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, "You use Alp?" "Yeah, I do," says my friend. "So do I," says the cop. "We all do." He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, "Drive safely, sir," and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine patch. In a nation of 350 million people, we're guessing there are about 350 million Alp stories. Email us yours. We want to know and read it on the air. Email tellall@alppouch.com. Tell all.
So, Bill, there you go. You can tell all about how your lip pillow is going to help you survive there.
I have to admit, I love Tucker's sense of humor. I don't know if that's what's driving the things they put in there. One of my fondest wishes is to go do some quail hunting. Now, when I go quail hunting, I don't shoot. I simply scare. So it is what it is.
Well, alppouch.com/CDM. Support us that way and enjoy a new experience. I'm going to turn it over to you to bring in our first guest, Bill. Thank you.
Okay, very good. We are delighted to welcome Chris Mora to the show. Chris, thank you for making time today, buddy.
Thank you for having me.
So I know a lot of people around the state know of you and your work for the last few years. Maybe it makes sense for the ones that don't, to introduce yourself, tell them a little of what you've been involved with.
Sure. Again, I'm Christopher Mora. I have been the chair for the last 4 years in Pickens County. First vice chair 3 times for the 11th Congressional District. Very involved in a lot of the civic organizations here in Pickens. Boys and Girls Clubs, very important to me. Been on the board there, especially during COVID, to keep those buildings open, because up in North Georgia, those are very, very important to this community, to have some place for those kids to go. And we've got some problems. And without it, I'd hate to think about where those kids would be. So
that's an important perspective, because most people think, well, it's the country. It's, nothing but good things happen out there, but there are challenges, aren't there?
Sure. I mean, we have, we know we have drug problems in North Georgia. We've got drug problems all over Georgia, and some of these kids, the sad thing is some of these kids, the last meal they eat from the day is what they get at the Boys and Girls Clubs. Mm-hmm. And you wouldn't think that in Pickens County is actually pretty well off, that would be a problem, but it is all over. So I'm really happy to be part of that, to help, to try to help some of those kids. I mean,
is it mainly because of the economy, Chris, or what is it? Do you think the main issue is?
I think they just can't dig themselves out. Yeah, I think it's just, and it's gotten worse recently. Mm-hmm. I mean, hopefully it's getting better. And I think we're seeing some steps for that to be getting better. So, but again, and everyone falls on hard times from time to time. It's
Sure.
nice to have somebody be able to help pick them back up. So
Sure.
That's what we're trying to do.
Well, I'm looking at my notes. I may have misspoken a few minutes ago. I mentioned Lumpkin County. I should have said Pickens County, and I hope the folks from both counties will appreciate. I have a document sitting in front of me with the Lumpkin's name on it, and I just happened to mistake it. In any case, so I also understand you have an announcement coming out. So let me turn it over to you and cover what you would like, please.
Yeah, I as of yesterday, we've launched my campaign for the 11th Congressional District. Not quite sure who's actually will be running. We've had some things go, some names come and go. Some people that have been appointed already that have now been obviously not will not be running, but I've kind of been waiting. I've kind of been working on some things over the last 2.5 years, and everyone's telling me the time is to do it is right now. So that is what we're doing. I've got a killer team. I've got a lot of good friends, and we met, as we showed pictures, we met yesterday and had a killer brainwashing session. And shared some ideas, figured out how we're gonna attack things. It was really good. It was really good to hear I as chair for the last couple of years. It's funny because if people are reaching out to their congressmen or elected officials, and doesn't even need to be congressmen, and they have a problem, they automatically think, well, let me contact the local GOP. And I always had the phone number pointed to me, to my cell phone. So I took all those calls. And, you know, we used to be a split district. We used to be split between the 14th and the 9th. And we had some really good constituent services and whatnot to help people. I like to think I like to help people too, or at least help them, at least guide them in the right direction. But, you know, ever since kind of the reorg and changing around of the districts, I've been having more and more complaints. And that's kind of really what, as I like to tell everybody, and I even said it yesterday, I mean, the last person really we should be thinking about is we should be hoping that our Congress, our congressional members are doing the right thing. Who should be thinking about who their congressman is? I just, you know, I want to know that whoever is in office is doing the right thing, voting the right way, voting according to the Constitution, not overstepping their bounds with passing things that should be controlled by the states anyways. And we see that overreach over and over and over again. And I think it's, you know, again, I'm only one person, but if we could find a whole bunch of people that think similar, I mean, we could make a change. So
wouldn't that be fascinating? I've been lucky enough to sit in on a couple of the GOP meetings where you've chaired in the past, I guess, year and a half or so, Chris. One of the things that I've noted is you draw in, and this is my own observation, you draw in the thoughts of the folks on the GOP committee to get both a consensus, but also get ideas. And I think one of the things that folks are in some cases, what I'm hearing folks complain about is we don't seem to ever get questions from our legislators. They always act like they know better than we do. Do you find that to be the case?
I do. They come and tell us what we need to be having or what we're missing instead of listening to what their constituents are asking for. And quite honestly, that was one of the big things that I want to do over the next year as we get ready for a primary. Because again, we need to convince people the primary is the general election. Because as we know in North Georgia, pretty much, if you're a Republican and you're picking up, especially in certain districts, and you win the primary, you're pretty much the guy. We happen to be in one of those areas. But I want to hear what the constituents want. I want to know, we got 5 counties a part of the 11th district. One thing I've never been asked, ever been asked, is what's important to Pickens County? What's important to the place that you live? Because they're all very unique. Because again, we're going from rural North Georgia all the way into Cobb. So they're very unique, but they all have different needs. And I think if we sit down and my team and I are going to find out what are those important things to those people, what is going to make life better. I know we have a problem in Pickens County that no one seems to want to help with. We are one county in the entire state of Georgia that has no water source. We have to buy our water outside the county. We have no reserve, there has to be something that needs to get done, and it's going to require money. It's going to require a reservoir being built. But I mean, that's just one thing. And that'd be one thing that would be really big to the people in Pickens County. So I wonder, what are the people in Gordon County? You know, what do they need? What are the people in Cherokee County? What do they need? In Bartow County, what do they need? So that's really what we're going to work on, is try to find out what people really want, and see how we can help them.
Chris, let me ask you, this is early and you may not know yet, but how's the party reacted to your candidacy? Do you have a sense of that yet?
The party's reaction. Are we talking the state party or are we talking the local party?
Well, both.
Well, again, in terms of the state party, I know I'm not going to be. I've been labeled as grassroots ever since I started. And again, we try to do my executive, and I had the greatest executive committee in the world with the Pickens GOP. Luckily, I had the good friends, everybody. We had friendlies. We had good conversations. Bill, you've been to a couple meetings. I always open it up. I never have to be worried that someone's going to take the conversation somewhere crazy. I like having good feedback and talk. We all learn from each other. That's the way it should be. Support wise here, fantastic. Community, the businesses and whatnot that know that I'm running have been very, very supportive. In terms of the state party, like I said, I'm not really looking. I looked for the state party to help me out back when I did our lawsuit, when we were trying to do some hand recounts of ballots here. They weren't here. They didn't want to get involved. So I know that. But yeah, I'm not the typical. I know I'm not the typical candidate that the state party is going to get behind. I mean, they are ballot access. This is really what they are. I'm not getting any help from the state party. I know that.
Well, that's a shame. But, one of the things that I'm hearing is at the national level, as believe it or not, DOGE uncovers more, it seems to be waking people up to ask the question, well, wait a minute, if this is happening at federal level and we have federal money coming into all these different areas of Georgia, what does that say about Georgia? Do we have similar problems here? And what and how and who might be involved? It's been an interesting question. I was at the Freedom Caucus event about a week and a half ago, and that came up, and you could tell that everybody in the room was cognizant and wondering where DOGE was going to play in Georgia. Do you have any sense of what may happen there, or maybe what they may focus on?
I'm not really sure. Well, again, who's going to be in charge of that to run that for Georgia? There's been a lot of things we've been promised in Georgia, especially by the party. Election integrity. There was never anything really being done in terms of election integrity. Those of us that have been fighting for that, you had your token person placed on top. I almost think we were all given positions to basically make spin our wheels, to keep us busy doing busy work. So I hope whoever is going to do that and look into things, that they're really going to do it. And it's not just, it's kind of funny. For fact, I know there's a group down in Cherokee right now and that are uncovering the money and following the money out of Cherokee. And it's been really interesting because it's like, and it's a whole bunch of keyboard warriors, which it's kind of like, why did none of us figure this stuff out before? And it's gaining traction. But again, we've got the information. How do we get it out? Mainstream media is not going to touch it. They're going to cover for their buddies. So how do we get that information? Now, I think that's the biggest problem.
Free media is key. We'll
So, as Todd said, it is kind of early, but do you have a sense of the kinds of things that may be incorporated in your campaign as you go forward? I realize it's early to ask that, but I thought I'd see.
No, we're going after, Gen Z. I want to go after the people that normally don't come out to the primary. You got to remember and everybody knows this, that have actually looked at that. When you look at primary numbers stink across the state. There's no big push to vote in the primary. People just don't do it. But I also know people complain that, hey, I go show up to the general election and these are the only people I can vote for. And it's like, hello, if you would have voted in the primary and actually voted for someone that you would like to see in the general election, you're at fault for that. We have to really take the primaries, seriously. I want to go after the minority vote. Cobb County, Cherokee County, Bartow County, they've got a minority population. I don't see my party going and trying to get those people. In fact, I can tell you this. For the last 2 presidential elections, volunteered. I would love to help with the Hispanic vote in the state of Georgia. We have 1 million Hispanics in the state of Georgia. Okay. I couldn't make traction. Or we find out that they set up an office in Lawrenceville. Okay. So what are the people in Rome going to do that work at the chicken plants? What are they going to do? They think people are going to travel from Rome to Lawrenceville. We have to bring the message to them specifically. We have to go out into the community and meet the people where they live. They are not coming. We need to show that we care about how they're living, how they're feeling, what their values are. I mean, I was adopted by my father. Was from Mexico, and very odd. Was in banking and was a Republican all the way. Grew up that way, and I know it was a little odd, especially growing up in Chicago. But it's crazy because the values of the Latinos, are so connected with what I always thought as a conservative Republican, but we just fail over and over and over again. Based on the numbers that we looked at, and we went to all 5 counties. If you break up, except for maybe Pickens and Gordon, but the other counties actually do have a decent size, minority base. If I could get 20% of the minority base to come out and vote in a primary, I win the primary for the 11th congressional district.
Well, Chris, we have a vehicle that can help you with that. CDM Espanol is our Spanish channel, so we'd love to connect you with them and get your word out that way as well, if you'd like. Do you speak Spanish? I'm just curious.
I don't, and it's kind of funny because my father was so proud to come to this country. And he always told us kids, no, we're in America. We speak English.
That's typical of the early immigrants. Yes.
Yes, we speak English. And now I look back and I told him, unfortunately, my father has passed. But I told him before he passed, I said, you really screwed us. I said, because it would have been very handy to know Spanish. But no, he insisted. He only spoke English around the house. That was
we can help you with interpreters on the site anyway. So
awesome.
Keep that in mind.
Well, Chris, it's been great having you on. We are excited for the announcement in your campaign beginning, and we'll look forward to hearing more as things progress. So
awesome.
Thank you for any last words or places that you would like to refer the folks to as they want to learn more.
Yeah. By the end of next week, moreforgeorgia.com will be up and live. I'm going to have a number on there for anybody that, like I said, I want to hear people's concerns. I want to know how we can help make things better. And there'll be an email address, like I said, and a phone number. Please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from everybody. So thank you guys.
Thank you for being with us. We'll look forward to hearing more.
All right. Thank you.
A great conversation. That should be a fascinating campaign. There's a feeling of expectancy that I felt. I was lucky enough to be invited to a meeting of a very tight group yesterday, and there's just this, we can really make change here. So,
very cool.
Shall we hear from one of our good sponsors?
Yeah, so we've said it over and over again, but the markets are extremely turbulent, and if you have situations in your life, the typical one is like a death. My parents just passed, and there's all kind of stuff you don't even know. You don't know that you have to deal with. David Cross, our sponsor and resident financial advisor at CDM, is the guy to call. So let's please run an ad from David. Thank you.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Okay, what's next, Bill?
All right. So the next section we're going to call "When is a member not a member?" So we have described the strange doings between the Georgia Georgia Republican Party and the Georgia Republican Party Inc. We've reported and confirmed these facts going back now the better part of 2 years. And we just got through writing an article back in February noting again that the Georgia Republican Party Inc. had in court documents in Fulton County disclosed and specified that they have no members. There's an excerpt from one of the documents filed in Fulton court. Folks can go on the georgiarecord.com and see that and see our comments about it. We also found the corporate documents. The corporate documents used to create the Georgia Republican Party Inc. additionally say the corporation will have no members. Just when we think we know all the stuff that needs to be known about this, I get, and thousands apparently across Georgia get, a membership card along with a request for money this week. Remember, we just got through saying corporation has no members. Court documents say corporation has no members. Yet I get a membership card, and thousands of others have apparently as well. And it asks for, guess what? Money. Says, here's your new Georgia membership card. Just fill out this acceptance form, send it back with, quote unquote, your generous donation of 150, 300, 400 or more. Now, is it 150 the minimum? We don't know. It's your generous donation. But it seems astounding, and many people all across the state that are aware of this issue, this ongoing question, echoed this. They said, what the heck am I getting? If the corporation has no members, what am I getting if I pay for this? What membership? To whom? What does it give me? And here's the acceptance form that's related. Now look at this. Up on the upper left-hand portion of the tear-off, it says Georgia Republican Party. I don't see an ink on the end of that. But just above, paid for by the Georgia Republican Party, Inc. Down at the bottom, please make checks payable to the Georgia Republican Party, Inc.
That's quite astounding, Bill. I mean, we talk about transparency. We've been trying for years to get to the bottom of this with absolute stonewalling from party leadership, to the point of having documents sealed forever in court, to this coming in the mail. It's almost, as they say, in your face. It's
so bizarre that, people instantly, I think, noticed it. And I got a couple of calls and emails, and, I had already spotted it because it was in my own mail. So the question becomes, what in the heck is going on? What makes them think that it's okay to say, well, we're not going to treat you guys like members. We're not going to give you access to information inside the party, even though you're supposed to be members. We're not going to answer questions. You'll recall that I've reported a number of times now that I asked Josh McCoon face to face after a Republican county GOP meeting. I asked him face to face, please help me get this thing off the table. Just help me get the documents that show that the Georgia Republican Party, it exists still. Help me find out where they are. Help me gather them. You can come on the show. You can show them. We can talk about it. This will be over. That was on a Wednesday evening, as I recall. By Thursday or maybe Friday morning, I don't recall, I'd sent a text message asking when we could get the documents. Never got an answer.
Well,
so,
if people would have, if 5 years ago, if someone would have come to me and said, half the Social Security checks going out are fraud, or whatever the number Doge came up with, that USAID was laundering money through foreign countries back to NGOs controlling politics in the United States, I would have said you're full of it. And but the scales have fallen off in a lot of people's eyes federally, but maybe the scales are falling off in Georgia as well as to what's happening in the recent past.
Maybe it is difficult to understand. And in some ways it's, you see this, and we've reported this again and again and again, the silence, both with issues going on in the legislature and the silence with regard to questions surrounding the GOP, their actions, more of which we're going to talk about in just a moment. The silence. Why? We're supposed to be a membership organization, supposed to be people working together. openly with accountability, but still, transparency. We just heard it from Chris a few moments ago. They don't ever seem to want to hear from the members, quote unquote, the constituency, the people that are that they rely on to keep them in power. Why? Why? It's astounding and confounding. And we're getting to
Yes.
the point where people are saying in mass, no mas, no pun intended, no more. We want to find out what's going on, and I believe we will. I really, really do believe we will. So this is, if you found one of these, if you get one of these mailings, consider what we just reported. I'm not gonna forecast or suggest what people should do, but other than maybe ask the question, what am I,
Yeah.
what do I get with my membership? What rights does it get me? Does it get me rights to see, executive committee minutes that haven't been published now in, gosh, I don't know, 2 years? Does it get me the ability to see the financials of the Georgia GOP?
Or even the formation documents of the Georgia GOP.
Yeah. What is the status? Where is it? How come there's no documents that anybody can find, including the Secretary of State, that say Georgia GOP, not just Georgia GOP Inc.?
Yeah, fascinating. Fascinating.
Okay.
We will know in time, I assume.
We will if we insist on it. I think we'll know. Should we take one more break, or do you press on?
So the Wellness Company, let's talk about that. This is the Contagion Kit. This is the travel kit. And I have used this over and over recently in my recent travels for medical issues that come up when you're on the road and you don't have to go to the doctor. You can get on the video and check it out and talk to a doctor there, and they'll say, well, just dig into your travel kit and you can pull all that out, what you need right there. The drugs are with you. So, and that's from, tick bites to sicknesses to antibiotics, all of it. And if you go to twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM, you get 10% off. In addition, you can get the Ultimate Spike Detox. And we're not saying that this is curing cancer or anything, but there is a lot of proof that the nattokinase in this will reduce the inflammation in your body created by the spike proteins by the vaccine or by the shedding, which a lot of people don't realize. They are getting this protein in their bodies from around people that are vaccinated, or COVID itself creates a lot of these issues. So if you're having, the autoimmune disorders and heart issues or whatever from the vaccine, from COVID, long COVID, this may be the answer to help your body get rid and attack those proteins that are being created in your body. So twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM, 10% off. And also check out their memberships, because they have all kinds of things where you get free prescription drugs, you get free supplements, and they've really re-engineering how healthcare is brought to the public. So back to you, my friend.
Good folks. They are very supportive too of making sure we're up to speed so we can report their findings.
Yes.
Often done through Dr. McCullough's good work, or through the work of his foundation and some of his great researchers like Nick Hulscher.
Definitely.
All right, our next piece. How do you win an election? Well, one way is to go out, talk to the people who will be making a choice on how they vote, espouse your positions, debate your opponents, advocate for what you wish to do, maybe ask your constituents what they would like or need, as we just heard Chris Mora describe. Something that I find completely missing in almost every presentation I've seen in now 3 years. We almost never ask, the legislators in all regards, whether it be U.S. or state, always seem to know more than their constituents right from the get-go. And I question that, because after the fact, we see priorities emerge that do not appear to be in line with the people's wishes. So that'll be a separate report later on. But how to win an election? The other way is eliminate your opponents. Get them out of the way any way you can. And we think that may be at the crux of what we're seeing now. A very nice lady, Lisa Pierce, put in, and we'll show the timeline here in just a moment. She put in an intent to run and her political resume or political background information, and gave it to the Georgia GOP in line with their request, in line with their announcement, and seemingly in answering the requirements as shown in the 2025 convention call. Here's what happened. On March 15th, Ms. Pierce submitted her intent to run and political resume through email to the GOP office here in Georgia. That same day, at 10 minutes till 5 being the deadline, she got a response from Karen Henschel at the GOP asking, is she submitting a separate political resume, or was that part of what was included in her original email? And she answered that evening after she got back from a wedding, and said that the original submission did include the political resume. So everything was submitted in Ms. Pierce's mind well ahead of the deadline, and was in fact, based on the response received, confirmed at that time. Now, remember that as part of her background, she's been the chairperson for the Upson County Republican Party for, I think, 23 months, better part of 2 years is the answer. Okay. Well thought of, great support in that area. Very kind, and in this is my opinion, a very unassuming person. You know, most of these folks love to see their name and their picture on everything they can get it on. And you'll see that in, DeKalb County, you'll see it in, Cobb County and these other counties. The chairman often wants to be the one pictured. What I noted in Upson County is she seems to be the one, in many cases, taking the picture to help show the work of her folks, her people that are in the GOP there in Upson County. So again, unassuming, a very interesting and kind person from what I gather, and from what I've gathered during conversations directly with her. So submitted everything, thought everything was fine, had no reason to believe it wasn't. That was on March 15th. On March 24th, so do the math, 9 days later, she gets an email again from Karen Henschel copying Josh McCoon, Alex Kaufman, who's the GOP attorney, and the GOP parliamentarian, Mr. White. In that email, it states, your submission of intent to run as required by Section C, number 7 of the 2025 GOP convention call does not meet the section's requirements, and therefore you are ineligible. This is a clip from what she received 9 days later, after presuming that she's in the race. And in fact, other people presumed she was in the race too, because she's on speaking schedules in a number of counties. Here is that rule. So you can see that it basically says, you can read it right here. Candidate must submit a notice of candidacy and a political resume to the state secretary at GRP headquarters on or before 5 p.m. on March 15th. Precisely what she did. Any such individual must meet with the state convention nominating committee as a prerequisite to having the individual's name placed in nomination at the state convention. So there's two things here. One is, once you submit this, you are scheduled by the people at the GOP to meet with the nominating committee. And if you recall, at last year's GOP state convention, there was an attempted nomination of Brian K. Pritchard from the floor. And I believe it was Josh who said, well, we can't accept that. He didn't meet with the nominating committee. So we'll come back to that in just a minute. So 9 days goes by, and then she gets this notice that she didn't meet this requirement. It seems to suggest that there's something more pursuant to Rule 911B. Here's Rule 911B. The procedure to qualify to run for an office to be elected by the state convention shall be provided in the call, including but not limited to specifying a date for submission of a notice of candidacy and political resume, which she met. Yet she gets a notice 9 days later saying that she is ineligible.
Did they give any further reasoning on that?
They simply said she didn't meet the requirements. And I think that there may be procedures that will be followed going forward that may cull out exactly what was said and not said in the various communications so that it'll be clear to everybody. But you can see the requirements here. I don't read any specific requirements. I don't see any things that they call out and say you have to do it this way. These seem to me quite general. And I've seen the documents that were submitted, and they brought forward that she had been GOP chair of Upson County. They brought for the period of time, brought forward her professional background and other factors about her family life and so forth. How does that not meet this requirement? Well, that wasn't discussed.
Well, any
He did-
responsible and, I guess, forward-looking party would say, we want a lot of involvement and we're missing, this is wrong in your candidacy. Please resubmit by blah, blah, blah.
You would
Right?
think
You would-
so,
you would
wouldn't
think
you?
so, yeah.
Well, when she received the notice saying that she was ineligible, she answered it fairly quickly
Mhm.
and said, well, I need to understand what's missing in your mind and so forth. I don't have it in front of me, but we'll probably disclose that in our next section. But the point was she answered it. That was the chance for someone from the Georgia Republican Party, namely Josh McCoon, to reach back and at least attempt to explain whatever the deficiency was if they felt there was a real deficiency. She received no communication
Wow.
and
That's
has,
not transparency, is it?
according to everything I know as of this moment, as of this broadcast, has received no further communication from them. She has made a direct request, demand, if you will, from the Georgia GOP, having received no communication after her first challenge back. And this flies directly in the face of what I just reported 5 minutes ago, maybe 10 minutes ago now. I asked Josh McCoon for those documents from showing that the Georgia GOP still existed. He said to me, after some go back and forth where he said, well, it's really not, we're not doing anything different. And I kept going back knowing, please help me get the documents. We'll put this to bed. It'll be gone forever. Finally said, yes, I'll help you. And then zero follow-up. We've heard that again and again and again, and I'm reporting it from my personal experience. And here comes another example of we're gonna eliminate you from the race. We're not going to tell you specifically why. Once you're eliminated, you won't be able to meet with the nominating committee. Consequently, there'll be another reason you can't be nominated from the floor. This is how, in some cases, you could win an election. What's particularly troubling is people all over the state have been looking forward to Lisa running because she's deemed to be an authentic, grassroots candidate, well-liked, well-respected, and different than the quote-unquote the establishment GOP players.
Right.
And so you can see right here, she is scheduled to speak Thursday, April 17th in Gainesville at an event hosted by the MAGA, led by Ron Hooper and Tom Talbot. And as far as I know, she's still on that. And I would be surprised, and I hope that they don't take her off, because folks need to hear her experience, not just what I've said, but what is that experience and why is this going on? My experience goes back 30 years in dealing with issues of, unfortunately, having to say no to people, whether it be, no, you can't work here anymore, whether it be, no, I can't hire you, whether it be, no, I can't do that in the business case.
Right.
And what you don't do is send an email and call it good.
And
you
not
have a human conversation, and then you justify the decision. If you can't, maybe that's why there's been no answer back from the GOP. So troubling, to say the least.
that is disturbing. Unfortunate.
It is indeed.
Let me pay some more bills before we need to move to the next section. We've talked about volatility in the financial markets, the equity markets, and crypto actually has been hit pretty hard in the last few weeks. We have been ahead of this with our interviews with, all of our financial advisors, including Ed Dowd. And of course, David Cross has talked about this a lot. But the markets are likely to be turbulent as the new economy, and Rob Cunningham in Georgia, by the way. But as this new economy grows and the way that it interacts with the people moving from Wall Street to Main Street to support manufacturing, et cetera, we're going to have some, volatility in the financial markets. How can you protect your portfolio that you worked your whole life to put your money in your 401k and then your IRA? And how can you protect it? And one way is with precious metals. And how do you do that? Well, you don't go to some firm that's going to sell you to buy $10,000 of the silver today. You go to a firm that you can trust, that has the background checked out, that we know that they're patriots, and we know that they don't put on a hard sale job. So cdmmetals.com, you can get to Advisor Metals. That's cdmmetals.com. You can talk to them, fill out the form, and their team will get in touch with you. Very low sales pressure, and just talk about your situation and then see if there's an avenue that fits for you in precious metals. But I would highly recommend, you can also get a precious metals investing guide for free at cdmmetals.com, but I would highly recommend talking to them. And this process has been going on with a lot of our viewers, I can say, with good results in recent past. So back to you, Bill.
Okay. Just to put a capper on that last section, I found something that I find just ironic, to say the very least. And you remember I mentioned that Lisa Pierce has been the GOP chair for Upson County.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on Upson County's Facebook site, this is what's up at the top of the page at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
A body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not be trusted by anybody. That's a quote from Thomas Paine. I just found it. I saw that and I thought, how ironic that would be up on their Facebook, given these circumstances. So, all right.
Well, you're seeing this not just at the local level here, but across the world. I mean, you look, they're putting Bolsonaro in jail to prevent him from running. Marine Le Pen in France, several countries this week decided they weren't going to allow people to run. I mean, it's the same tactic.
That's right. That's right. So, our next story, we're going to go back to something we have been reporting now for over a month, and it's this stupid, stinking SB 144, also known as the pesticide bill. And something more has happened. We thought it was bad enough last week when we found that Bayer, one of the companies given a shield by that bill, was found to be responsible for $2.1 billion in a verdict because of their product Roundup been found to cause cancer in one particular gentleman, but they have 60,000 cases waiting that are very similar. Well, so the SB 144 pesticide bill, it just gets worse. So on top of it passing last week or the week before, and this was when we called out the $2 billion Roundup verdict here in Georgia, that very well could present a precedent. Yet now the legislation has put in place a shield so that if certain warnings are not on the label, you can't hold the maker accountable. And so guess what they might do? Perhaps, the warnings about cancer, about the risks of these chemicals, if they happen to be left off the warning label, well, you can't go after them. Now comes word that Bayer had agreed to remove Roundup from shelves in I believe it's a settlement reached last year in 2023. Well, that sounds good. That sounds productive. However, they have other Roundup products that are being introduced that are worse. Research has shown that the new Roundup weed killer, in a combination of 4 different chemicals now being included in these various Roundup products, is across the board 45 times more toxic to humans. One product is 200 times more toxic. So when they said, "Oh gosh, we'll get Roundup off the shelves," they're complying apparently with that slowly. but they're putting back things that are even worse. How in the heck? One of the specific chemicals that is now being introduced is something called diquat dibromide. Diquat dibromide. In looking it up, we find that it can be responsible for inflammation, allergic reactions affecting skin, eyes, respiratory system, virtually everything to do with a human. And it is 200 times more chronically toxic than glyphosate, the chemical in the main chemical in Roundup currently and in the past. But get this. All of these products are Bayer products. They're made by a company based in Germany, in the European Union. That product, this diquat dibromide, and I believe glyphosate as well, has been banned for use in the European Union. But certainly diquat dibromide, the most dangerous of all these chemicals, banned where Bayer exists. How
That's
could that
why
be?
You really need to find local produce providers that don't have this stuff in it. But go ahead.
That, and we need to hold our legislators accountable for having put in place a shield for a company that would do this. They're fine shipping it to the U.S. Why would they do that when they ban it in the European Union? What is it they want to have happen, Americans, that they don't want to have happen in Europe? You can't get away from that question.
Well, I think
So,
we need to realize that Europe is acting very tyrannically to its own people, and they don't give a damn about other nations, especially the United States. And that's what you're seeing geopolitically with Trump and Macron and all of them.
yeah. Well, we wanted to give people specifics. You're not going to be able to read these, but we're going to publish this in the Georgia Record, georgiarecord.com. And this goes through all the different ways you can be, this can find its way into you. And it's virtually every possibility: skin, eyes, through ingestion, through breathing, through respiration. Any of those can get this chemical, this diquat dibromide, into you. And essentially that's true for most of the chemicals they use. But this stuff is very, very dangerous. So we'll have more on this, I'm sure. But the bigger picture for me is why, this is not completely new information. Legislators, the people making laws, should have known this. Yet they voted overwhelmingly, both Democrats and Republicans, supposedly, voted to put these shields in place for these chemical companies.
Quite amazing. Hopefully that'll be challenged at the federal level, but we'll see.
We will see. So let's see. I'm going to turn it over to you, Todd, for a couple of minutes. I'm going to take a deep breath because a couple of these stories today really got me triggered. I have to admit, these are bad things being done to Georgians by the people that we've asked to represent us, and I just can't get past it for the moment. So over to you.
So I'll take over here. So Nucleo Boost is something we've developed with John B. Wells. It's a micronutrition formula that has the bioallo that's actually the injector into your cells to get the building blocks you need. Think of it as a pothole. If you're driving down the street, this at least fills the potholes in your system so that you, if you do get attacked by some type of disease, your body's much stronger to fight it. But we interviewed Dr. John Waterman, who is the developer of Nucleo Boost, and you can check this out at cdmnutrition.com. But we interviewed Dr. Waterman. We're going to show the full interview tomorrow on the Skiff, 10 to noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. But I'll just play a few minutes of it here just to give you a taste, and come tomorrow and check out the full interview. Here's Dr. Waterman.
Even SARS or any of those things getting into you is staying healthy. Because when you're
strongest at that point.
Yeah, because your body's smarter than the labs are. Our bodies are smarter than the doctors. And all we have to do is give it a chance to do its job. And then we won't get sick and chronic diseases, but things have been going really bad. And so it ends up that we have less nutrient dense food of nutrients. Now, here's what I'm going to say. Many people say, well, I go to the health food store and I get organic food. Now, organic means only one thing, two things: no pesticides, no herbicides. suggest you check into the WISE Foundation,
Mhm.
because they teach people how to make nutrient dense soil in their organic gardens. Now, I used to take a bricks meter, go to a farmer's market and get organic food and check the density and levels of the nutrients in their food. I really would. I'd walk around with my meter,
Mhm.
squeeze the stuff and check it right there. And I found many organic foods very low in nutrients.
Mm.
Now, I knew I wasn't going to be getting pesticides and herbicides, but we want more than that. And that's pretty much the case today, Todd, where we get mass-produced organic foods is because the plant wants to pull out 20 different kinds of minerals, but we only put 3 in the soil.
Right.
What
Makes sense.
happens is we might think we're eating good, and then we find ourselves kind of getting sick, going, what's going on? And, even today, there was a guy that was doing an intel briefing for us, and it was real important. We're talking about a bunch of stuff, and we haven't gotten into the fact that I spent about 15 years as an asset in the military intel.
Mhm.
But anyway, what ended up happening, he ate a strawberry, an organic strawberry, and he got sick as a dog. So we are having compromised foods even today, even when we're trying to eat the right things.
Because
So
they had what, bacteria in them or something, or
it was, yeah. Now, see, there are protections from some of these chemicals. Yeah, nothing will live, not even you. You go get some Monsanto, put it in your body, you're going to be in trouble.
Mhm.
But what we want is a balanced nutrients in a plant. God meant for our plants, the weeds not to show up. There is a philosophy from some of these people that God allows the weeds to grow when the soil is imbalanced. And I've noticed that there was a man that wanted to do organic soy, and he wanted to be certified. So he had to wait 3 years on the herbicides, 2 years on the pesticides, or the other way around. I can't remember. And in the meantime, he was working the soil for nutrient density.
Mhm.
And once you get the soil balanced, Dr. Reams told us you got to get the soil balanced, and then you will have the proper balance. And when you plant a food for the body, guess what won't grow is the weeds.
interesting. So I found the interview with Dr. Waterman extremely interesting, and so we'll play that tomorrow on the Skiff. So come back to cdm.press and find it there.
It was interesting to hear him mention Monsanto. And from
Mhm.
some of our audience, they realized Monsanto is the chemical company that was bought by Bayer in 2018.
Yes. So we're going to stay on this story. I have a feeling, Bill.
I do have that funny feeling. All right, I'm better now. Onward.
Well, I
We're-
think we're
we're
done
gonna-
now. That's all I had for the day, unless you have anything else you want to dig into. I don't want you to get triggered again, though. I just gotta watch
Okay,
that,
all right.
that blood pressure.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will be back on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. I bet we're going to have more to talk about. And we're coming up to Sine Die, the end of this coming week, the end of the legislative session. We will see how much more mischief our legislators can get it into. And we will see how many of them are willing to answer for what they've done in this legislative session.
Well, let me just give a plug to the show tomorrow, because we have
Oh, that's right.
let me find, there it is. We have Bob Amsterdam, who is the attorney for the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And there's a story which is really shocking. I went into the catacombs in Ukraine, in Kiev, under the monastery. This is a 1,000-year-old structure. And you can go down to the saints and see their relics and walk among these men who spent their lives dedicated to God over 1,000 years. And this is going to be the first interview on the Skiff tomorrow. We've interviewed attorney Amsterdam many times, but this week, the Ukrainian state church, which we've talked about destroying Christianity in Ukraine, is going into the catacombs and examining all the remains. We don't know why they would want to do this, except the Ukrainian Orthodox Church around the world, the Orthodox Church around the world is saying this is a blasphemy for the state church, like the CCP church, the Christian church with the Communist Party in China, disturbing these saints' burial grounds and the catacombs under the monastery. So we're going to talk about this with Attorney Amsterdam tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. So join us on the Skiff. Back to you. That's all I got, Bill.
We will see you again on the Georgia show on Wednesday, and we will look forward to watching the Skiff this week. So thanks, Todd, and we'll be back next time.